Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat Podcast. I am your host, Adam Deacon. And guys, today we've got an awesome show lined up. But first, I wanted to kind of go over a couple of things here. I guess more than anything, tease something. We've got a lot of really cool things in the work with the podcast. Actually, some stuff going on with the Serious Angler guys with their podcast. We've been working with them all through the Elite Series season, talking about fantasy, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of really cool things in the works, kind of a collaboration type thing. So be on the lookout for that. But guys, into today's show, I'm super excited. We've got someone who seems to just be always busy. Jake Latendresse, guys, with Latendresse Media. He's also the co-owner of Praire Rock Outfitters, as well as a cameraman on the Elite Series, and does so much more super retriever stuff. It just seems to be all over the outdoor media space, videography. Without further ado, let's bring in Jake. Let's see here. Jake, how's it going, man?
Hey, Adam. How are you doing?
Doing well. Doing well.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Dude, I figured, you were done with the Elite Series season. And I was thinking, man, maybe this would be a good time to have him on the show. But it's like you're shooting a still timber sports deal last weekend. How did that go?
That was interesting. That was my first time on that set. That was for CBS Sports, and like you said, the Steel Timber Sports National Championship.
Wow.
And I'd never done that before, but it was cool to be on stage. They had signed the contract a year ago during COVID, so there was no crowd this year because they had to comply to the contractual agreements that they made, last year. Um, but yeah, it was those guys and those ladies are super athletes, and they're not just rednecks with chainsaws and axes. They work at what they're doing, just like baseball players. Hit work on their swing and whatnot. So it was pretty cool.
I bet, man. Yeah, that's crazy. I've seen that before on TV. And yeah, they swing. They swing a lot of axes. They run chainsaws incredibly well, and it's all like super high tech gear, right? I mean, they have those things down just to exactly how they want them to be.
I mean, all the every chop is calculated, every move is calculated, their hip, their hip movement, their arm movement, how they utilize their tools, be it the chainsaw, and they have a stock chainsaw from steel which they use, and then
Oh,
they have a custom chainsaw that they build themselves, which is basically a Harley Davidson with no wheels and a big saw blade. So yeah, it was really cool. I'm probably going to do that again next year. Hopefully it'll be live, at least live streamed, and it'll be post edited for CBS. But there will be a crowd next year, and it'll be at Simmons Arena in Little Rock again. So yeah, that was a way cool job.
heck yeah, dude. No, it just, man, it seems like I follow you on Instagram. You're always up to something. I don't know how you keep your time straight. It's just, gosh, you have so many things going. I guess to start everything off with that, I mean, how do you kind of allocate your time, or how do you make decisions with that? Or you just always look, I'm going to grind it out. I'm going to keep doing things until I figure things out.
Yeah, I think it's really a spontaneous, chaotic, self-organized mess.
Yeah.
And I just, most of my trips are all logged into a Google Calendar, and I just live on my phone and on my calendar. I have 3 children, and I'm a single dad, a single parent. So I'm at home. When I'm at home, my attention and my focus is on my children, and that's a whole nother job within itself. But then when I'm on the road, which is quite frequent, um, I just go from calendar date to calendar date, and I fly into events and fly out as quickly as I can. Sometimes I'm on red eye flights to get home in time for my children, to get my children to school, on Monday morning. But I guess you just work it out. I don't like leaving work on the table or jobs on the table for someone else to snatch. So I take every opportunity that I can get, and at the end of the day, you just work hard and make it happen, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, man. No, you love to hear that. And I've had a couple, I guess one other media guy kind of on the show, and it's like, man, it's like a job comes up and you guys are all for the most part, right, independent contractors to where you're bidding on a job or you're getting into that job. And it seems like that's I think the way to ensure you're gonna get things done is to, like you said, not really leave anything on the table and say, hey, look, I'm gonna be the guy that picks up the jobs. If it comes to me and I want to do it, I'm gonna do it.
And Bassmaster, the production company that operates the Bassmaster TV show for the Elite Series is JM Associates,
Hmm.
and they're separate. Even though it's owned by the same person, it's a separate entity really than Bassmaster. But they do lots of other things like the steel timber sports. They do the air shows out in Reno, Nevada, with the
Oh yeah,
the trick jet fighter planes.
yeah,
And then, they do various other things for ESPN and ESPN2 with college football. And of course, our main and primary production is Bassmaster on the Elite Trail with the live stream, and then the Fox
yeah,
Sports One live production. And then we have our own platform on Bassmaster.com, which, airs too. So it's a very busy life. I always tell people, like I told you when I was talking to you on the phone, or when we first came on to meet prior to the show going live,
yeah.
is I feel like I'm busier than a two-headed woodpecker, man. It's constant. But you work hard when you're young. You dream about being on the big stage, doing the things that you love and that you dream about. And if you don't take the opportunities when you're young, work hard and go, bumper to bumper with what you're doing and expend that energy, you'll never get there. So my dad always told me, if you're not tired, you're not doing it right. So I think I must be doing something right because I'm really tired.
Yeah. No, dude, I like that. I heard a quote the other day that was um, like life is hard and it's always hard no matter what you choose. So you might as well bear down and get it done with something that you like doing, man. And it seems like you've really kind of built that into everything that you do. Let's kind of start with the beginning and your background that really got you into photography, outdoor filming. Where did it all start for you?
I mean, as a kid, I was always into art. I took photos with my dad's Nikon F3, I think it was his film camera, way back when, and I used to draw in colored pencil and paint with acrylics and oil paints and even watercolor. So I've always had an artistic background, but in the late '90s, I was really into rock and ice climbing in the extreme adventure world, and I had done an expedition in Alaska, and I had a little Leica camera that I was shooting color slide film on, and I was in Alaska climbing a mountain called Mount Foraker in the Denali Range,
Okay.
and as we were skiing back across the Kahiltna Glacier, I was just looking in front of me and I saw this really pretty picture of Mount Hunter, which is a notorious alpine mountain that is just famous in the climbing world. And I snapped a couple of shots. And when I got home and got the slides developed, I saw that a few of them turned out, pretty good, at least by my standards.
Yeah.
So I sent them in to some different magazines and different manufacturers in the ice climbing world. And lo and behold, about a year later, a friend of mine came to me and brought a catalog and threw it on my desk and said, "Do you recognize that?" And it made the front cover of the North Face catalog, and
Wow.
that was my very first published photo ever. And I was mad because they published my photo and they never contacted me, they never paid me for it or anything.
Oh,
Yeah, so I went into the editorial credit section in the front behind the front cover of the magazine, and I contacted North Face, and they had explained to me that through my inexperience, I forgot to add my return address or a phone number, so they had no way of reaching me. So they figured they'd publish the photo, I would see it, I would get mad, I would contact them, and then we could settle up then. So they sent me a nice hefty check for the cover shot, and they sent me a big box of North Face equipment, and that gave me the confidence
uh-huh.
to do more. And from there, I went into shooting photos for Patagonia Apparel Company
Wow.
in the ice climbing and climbing world, and it just sort of evolved from there. So as I got closer to the video world, when hunting and fishing videos were becoming really popular with In Fisherman and
Yeah.
different TV shows like The Wild Outdoors and RNT, their video series.
Yeah.
And that's where I really cut my teeth was in the hunting and fishing world. I
Mhm.
contacted Jay Gregory at the Wild Outdoors and Jim Ronquest at RNT Calls, and just told them what I was doing. I had a broadcast video camera, and if they would give me an opportunity, that I would work hard for them. And both brands hired me, and everything just kind of evolved from there. So that's
Wow.
in a nutshell. That's how it started. I got really lucky.
That's no, man, that's awesome. I think it's that's a crazy story with North Face. Like your first ever shot that you were considering to put into a magazine or something literally gets to be the front cover of a North Face apparel listing or something like that magazine. That's
Yeah.
incredible. And I mean, I that kind of just shows, right? Like a lot of folks, especially kind of the target audience for this show, a lot of that is people who are interested in working in the outdoor and the fishing industry. And I think the biggest thing to me is that you kind of just went for it, right? You thought, okay, look, I'm starting to build my skills here. I'm going to reach out to these companies. And, lo and behold, you get some responses, you work hard for them and they're interested to go ahead and bring you on. So that is really, really cool in a good way to kind of get things started in your career.
Yeah, I think you have to apply yourself. And today, in today's day and age of technology and tutorial access to YouTube and websites and social media platforms, it's really not as difficult to become a technical photographer as it used to be. So
Mhm.
there's way more competition. But there's also more brands, because we have social media platforms that has really, particularly as television marketing has transferred and transcended over into social media marketing, and even YouTube and the other. There's a lot of room for a lot of people, and there's room for everyone. But at the end of the day, as competitive as it is, you have to be good at what you do. You have to be professional at what you do. You have to be loyal and honest and all those things, so that people believe in you. And once someone believes in you, then you can sort of springboard your career into any direction you want to go. But you have to work hard. There's no question.
No doubt, man. No doubt. And man, and really kind of where I started following along with kind of your career and everything on Instagram. Look, I grew up hunting and fishing, still do a lot of it here in Colorado. I live in Windsor. I'm not very far from you. I spend a lot of time, and especially when I was at CSU at the town pump in Fort Collins, just awesome kind of background on my side of things. But gosh, I'm a big waterfowl hunter and all that stuff. But really, I honestly didn't know who you were until I saw something on an Elite Series deal, and it's something on Instagram that popped up when you were recording. I think it might have been Seth Fighter in some tournament or someone like that. And I was like, oh, whoa, whoa, this person's right here. But man, I guess let's go into that whole thing, being an Elite Series cameraman, what that's like, and really where that all began. Because to me, you're getting a front row seat to something that is incredible. It's something that I've dreamed of, something that I've always loved following with an absolute passion.
Of all the freelance jobs that I've ever had, the Bassmaster Elite Tournament Series is my favorite for the obvious reasons. I mean, if you like to fish or bass fish or do any kind of activity, really, you get, like you said, it's a front row seat into a true professional um, career, of various anglers that have made it to the top level. It's the NFL of bass fishing. It's the Major League Baseball of bass fishing, and they're every bit as good at what they do as any professional athlete on the planet is. They're just so in tune to everything, from the technical aspects of their equipment to the digital aspects of their sonar units and their GPS units, pinpoint accuracy to knowing exactly what to throw at the right time, during the life cycle or even a weather pattern, um, in bass fishing. So, that came about as I was working more with different TV shows in the outdoor industry, particularly on the Outdoor Channel and what's now called the Sportsman's Channel, I got involved with a television show called Water Dog TV right after I got hired by Jay Gregory and Jim Ronquist. And the lady who was the owner and the editor and the producer of Water Dog TV's name is Shannon Nardi, and she is the daughter of Jerry McInnes,
Oh, wow.
who, as you know, was the longtime owner of Bassmaster, one of the original developers of the FLW. He's had his hand in on. He had the longest running TV show of any network on any channel ever in the history of television, called The Fishing Hole. And
Mhm.
she's the one that, once I started working for her on Water Dog TV and the Super Retriever series, she's the one that said, "You need to get with my brother and my dad," who the director of Bassmaster Television is Mike McInnes, Jerry's son. And, it took me like 3 years to get into the Elite Series.
Really?
And because back then there was no live streaming, there was only four camera operators on the water at the time, and it was all for post edit television
Sure.
production. And so finally, they started getting beat up or tired or getting ready to retire. And my boss, the chief camera operator, Wes Miller, contacted me, asked me if I was available for a shoot where they needed some help. So they flew me to Douglas Lake in East Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my very first assignment was Douglas Reservoir in 2012, which was 10 seasons ago.
Yeah.
My first assignment was Haute de Faux.
Wow.
And
That is
yeah,
a place.
yeah, there was, and remembering back on that original assignment, he was catching 3 and 4 pound fish, which were big fish in that lake,
Oh, yeah.
in 38 to 45 feet of water. And
Wow.
that's where I learned about long line, deep cranking, where
Yeah.
they would spool the reel, go down the brake line, use their trolling motor, spool their entire reel while their crankbait was floating, and then just crank it back as hard as
All
they
the
could.
way.
And they were getting down to 35, 40 feet of water. And it was an incredible experience. I fell in love with it. And I just never looked back from there. Bassmaster Elite is an incredible experience, and I think it's the best job in the outdoor industry.
Wow. Wow. That is that's awesome, man. No, and like you said, part of this guys getting older, getting beat up, like, dude, I mean, I and my background is fishing tournaments from high school, college, and now I'm fishing the Toyota series and those kinds of events. And it's like, dude, it is a grind. I mean, it is an absolute grind. And I cannot imagine some of the boat rides that you've been on as an Elite Series camera guy, and especially now, like you said, now that it's live for 4 days, like, dude, it has gotta be wear and tear on the body too, and being that focused and getting the shot when it's a top water bite or those kinds of situations. I mean, talk a little bit about the physical and then probably some of the mental grind that you go through.
hmm I mean, being a mountain athlete, and even an athlete in high school and early college career, I've always liked to stay in shape. I just do. That's just part of my lifestyle, like you, I'm sure. And so, the physicality of riding passenger in a boat, in a fast boat, as you know, these are, 20 to 21, really 19 to 21-foot bass boats that are designed like race cars. They've got 250 horsepower engines on the back. They've got jack plates. They go anywhere from, 64 to the fastest I've ever been in a bass boat is 82 miles an hour with Lee
Oh,
Livesey, and even Quentin Capo had a fast boat at one time.
yeah.
And so, you know, the smooth rides are fun and they're engaging, and it's like a fast, jet fighter ride through a river system, and that's all great. But when you have to cross big water like St. Clair, Lake Ontario, Lake Michigan or Lake Erie or anything like that, Winyah Bay is one of the roughest bodies of water I've ever been on. It
Yeah.
takes some physicality and some experience to learn how to ride in the passenger seat, because you either have one handle or two handles, but you got to hold yourself down. And when the driver knows when a jar is coming, but sometimes you don't.
Oh yeah.
And you can, I mean, we've had marshals and camera guys bounce out of the boat before. So yeah, it's something. And I would like to say too that over the past 10 years, bass boat technology and bass boat design and engineering has come so far, and particularly the last 3 to 5 years, the passenger chairs have become, they absorb the shock better. The boats are better designed. All
Mhm.
those things, even the boat drivers are very experienced, and it's not as bad as it used to be. I
Used to
can tell
be.
you that right
Yeah.
now. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I get messages all the time on social media asking, people that are in the boat market, what's the best ride on the
Y
water? And
Sure.
and as camera guys, we get to ride in all of them, from Skeeters to Phoenix to Express, and the new and very limited ballistic boats that Lee
Yep.
Livesey rides, and Bass Cat and all those. And so the answer is always, well, it depends on where you fish, because if you fish in super shallow water, you might want to look at the new aluminum boats like Express or Lund, because they can draft in super shallow water, when a big, heavy glass boat can't. Or if you fish the Great Lakes or St. Clair or something like that all the time, you might want to look at a Skeeter, because they absorb that big water, physicality very well. And
Yeah.
then, maybe a Phoenix in between, because they're fast and they absorb the
Yeah.
water. So yeah, there's lots of different applications, but it's cool to be able to ride in all the different boats.
I bet, man. No, that's so I'm actually I just sold my boat. I have a Legend, an a 2005 Legend.
Hmm.
And I'm in the market right now and I'm looking at a lot of different boats. And so perfect person to have on with this, like you said. Um, you know, to me, I guess, and you can be as biased or unbiased as you want to be. I mean, like you said, what are your thoughts on the boats you've been on? What boat has really, really impressed you, and maybe what's one that didn't? And like you said, I like the idea that Phoenix kind of in between, because that's a fast hole and it's also got pretty good rough ride. But to me, so the Skeeter and the Express, I'm curious about, and then any other boats you might have thought process on after being in all these different boats.
Yeah, that's a really good conversation to have.
Yeah.
The express boats, people, there's the doubt about express boats needs to be very clear. They're way more comfortable and way more durable than you might think, even on big water. I've been
Sure.
on big water in Caleb Summerall's Express X21. I've been across Winyah Bay 3 times with Bill Lowen in
Oh, wow.
extremely rough conditions and washing machine conditions. And that thing is surprisingly durable, and it doesn't bounce and jar you like you think an aluminum boat would. It's not a duck boat, it's a bass boat.
Yeah.
And they've been designed as such. So, that's something. And they're way more budget friendly if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
young and you don't have $100,000 to spend on a boat with everything on it. Yeah, yeah. And so express boats are extremely impressive. The one I would say that has impressed me the most over the past 2 years
Sure.
is ballistic. I'm very good friends with Lee Livesey, and I happen to get matched up with him quite a bit, because we've got sort of a tandem chemistry going on as a camera guy, angler on the water. So they match us up quite a bit. And I've been on some very long 100 and shoot, I think we went one way 120 miles down on the Sabine River this spring early on in the season. And that is an extremely fast boat. It's as fast as Bass Cat, but it's less. It has less. Uh, it has less bounce to it. The hull is very smooth on rough water. The fastest I've been is 82 miles an hour in his boat, and it seemed like we were, in cruise control. That's a very impressive boat. They only make 13 a year, and
Yep.
they're all handmade in their very small private shop in Idaho,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
I'm very impressed with ballistic. But there's a you definitely pay for those boats too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the Skeeter, is I've been with Chris Zaldane. I ride with Paul Nick quite a bit.
Mhm.
Spend a lot of time in the skeeters, and for big water, big nasty Great Lakes, that kind of a situation. I don't know if I would feel any safer in any other boat
Really?
outside of the skeeter. Those are really really. They're not the fastest boat on the water, but they're not the slowest boat on the water either. And it
No.
seems like in that competitive atmosphere, if you're running 67 to 69 or 70, 71 miles an hour, you're going plenty fast because no one's going to pass you except maybe Lee Livesey, Seth Fighter, and Hank Cherry.
Yeah.
um,
The
no
cat.
one's going to pass you, and you're going to get to where you're going safely. So the
Yeah.
skeeter's a very good one. So my top four choices would be in different environments would be the ballistic, the Phoenix, the Skeeter, and the express boats. Those are
Okay.
those are they're hard to beat.
Yeah. No, man, those are some good options. And again, through my research with all this, and I've spent a decent amount of time as a co-angler and have been able to be in a lot of Phoenix boats, and then just friends with boats, different Rangers and all kinds of different boats. And really where I've narrowed things down, I like going fast, man. And I know it's not necessarily the biggest, you don't always need to be going super fast, but I like a good rough water hole ride. So kind of the boats that I've narrowed down to right now are a Bass Cat, a Phoenix, and a Blazer. I'm curious if you've ever been in a Blazer. They're real small out of Florida, kind of small, similar. And the new holes, not the old Blazers were just fast and not great in rough water. But from what I understand, from the little bit of research that I've done, the new holes are very well made and do well in the rough. And they also run 79 to 83 miles an hour. So have you ever been in one of those boats, a Blazer?
I have. I was in a boat. I covered the high school national championships last year on
Okay.
Kentucky Lake, and my camera boat driver had a new Blazer, and I was very impressed with it. As you bring that up, there's actually several what I would call not necessarily boutique boat designers,
Mhm.
but sort of brands that aren't as popular as others, like
Bullet.
Blazer, Bullet, Falcon.
Mhm.
Falcon makes a very nice boat that's very comparable to a Phoenix in design, the front deck width, the speed, the hull, the everything about it is very very similar to a Phoenix, and they're a little bit cheaper. I say these things non-biased because I do have relationships and friendships with
Sure.
people that express, the owner Rory Herndon and the national marketing or the vice president of marketing Clay Connor are very good friends of mine.
Mhm.
So I do have that bias, but I'm also speaking as I describe these boats non-biasedly. And even Gary Klaus is a good friend of mine, the owner of Phoenix
Phoenix
Boats,
boats,
and
yeah.
I took a really nice boat ride with him. I think we ran about 40 or 50 miles down the St. Johns River, the very first event this year, and I covered Gary for 3 days as he had a top five finish down there.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Phoenix boat that is the Cadillac slash Ferrari in the bass world. That is the number one all around bass boat on the water. Don't let
Right.
anyone tell you any differently. I'm not talking to you because I'm
Right.
just speaking to the viewers out there, the listeners. That is the boat to have. But they also come with a hefty price tag. And once you get that thing loaded up, you're looking at a nice fat check. So, don't be afraid to look at these off brands. You don't have to have a Phoenix or a Ranger or a Skeeter to do well or to be able to get to where you're going on the water from point A to point B safely and quickly. There's lots of different boats that are a little bit more affordable, like we said, Blazers,
Express, man.
Falcons, Express. Express is, I mean, that is they're a hot tamale in the bass world right now. And as you know, them signing Jason Christie and Bill Lowen, Caleb Summerall having a top. I
Unbelievable
think.
season, man.
Oh, he had a huge. He had. I think he finished number five in AOY at the
Yeah.
end of the season,
7.
and he's
Yeah.
someone that's gonna. He's gonna. He's someone that's going to be reckoned with because he's very in tune to what's going on underwater, and he runs an express like a Formula One race car driver does.
Yeah, I think on your Instagram, you got a picture of him, that thing absolutely tilted over, and
Mhm.
that's one, man, it wasn't on my radar, and that's my 4th actually on my list right now. I'm looking for my 2022 season, I'm looking at what I wanna do right now, but that is one where I have a buddy that's like, "Dude, you need to check one out. You need to check one out," because I have been in some aluminum bass boats. I've been in aluminum Ranger that I didn't like. I've been in some, Crestliner I did not like, and so I'm curious to see if that one, like you're saying, rides the way it does. I mean, you have the length in a 21-foot boat. So this is awesome, man. I didn't mean to go on that tangent with you, but
That's
that is
okay.
that is exactly kind of what this show gets into, and that's kind of more of a personal thing more than anything else because I love bass boats, man. It's like just a huge part of why I love tournament bass fishing is that boat ride in the morning, as you know, can be just an absolute blast.
To me, it's the funnest part of the tournament. I mean, everything else is interesting. Catching the fish, the location, adjusting to different varying conditions that they have to face throughout a day, be it, weather or even the bite activity itself. But the boat ride to me is what gets me going, gets me pumped up. I've
Yeah.
got my earbuds in. Um, on every boat ride out from takeoff to wherever we stop for the first cast. And I'm typically listening to AC/DC or
Yeah.
ZZ Top or Led Zeppelin or something. And I just get fired up about the boat ride, especially going fast.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. No, that's awesome, man. You sound so similar in that aspect. Um, man, I know so the last event of the year, you've got to do something extremely special, right? You got to cover Taku on the final day on the St. Lawrence River. I mean, dude, that is someone who like I'm getting like chills right now, like
Me
thinking about
too.
that guy. Like that stuff is just incredible to me. His emotion, his passion for the sport. I mean, dude, you gotta walk us through that final day and really how incredible that was.
First of all, let me tell you how nice of a person, of a human being Taku Ito is. He might be the nicest person on this entire planet. Okay. And I think everyone that's ever been around him from the Elite Series to and whoever knows Taku would agree with me that he's just an incredibly generous and nice human being. Okay. So that's number one.
Mhm.
Secondly, I've been with Taku. This is his second year on the Elite Series, and I got to cover him. I've been with him like 5 or 6 times, and he and I match well. My mother is Japanese, so
Mhm.
I know a little bit of the Japanese language, which is why they matched me up with him. In the very beginning, his
Okay.
rookie season last year, so that he would feel more comfortable. I could help interpret some of the things that he was saying because of his broken English and didn't want any misunderstandings on cue and things like that. So Taku and I have become very good friends. I just talked to him yesterday. He's up at Lake Oahe practicing for next year
That's
already.
insane, man.
He
He
drove from he drove from St. Lawrence. He practiced there for a week after the tournament that he won. Okay, drove straight to Lake Oahe in South Dakota before he goes back to Japan for the off season. So the guy's work ethic is unbelievable, and that's why he is who he is, and why he is successful as he is because he works hard at it.
yeah,
His background, he never caught a smallmouth fish in his life until last year.
it's insane.
And he was in a top 10 finish on St. Clair last year. He almost won that tournament, and the reason why is because he's used to fishing extremely. You think Gunnersville is
Pressured.
highly pressured? Go to Lake Biwa in Japan. Like it's standing room only on the banks, and most of those people there are bank fishermen. So he had to learn how to fish super ultra finesse style
Okay.
out offshore because there's so many people fishing the bank. You can't even fish it with a boat. And so the largemouth in Japan
Mhm.
translate into very similar habits and techniques on smallmouth fisheries in the United States.
Okay.
And while he never caught one in his life, the translation in how he's used to fishing, it was turnkey here on smallmouth fisheries. So he didn't even know that he was going to do well on St. Clair. In fact, he was scared to even go out there, but he learned to adapt to it and found this boulder field, this underwater boulder field that had some nice fish on it. And man, he just picked that place apart. And like I said, I can't remember if he finished third or fourth, but he had a shot at winning that thing on Championship Sunday. And that was really the tournament that elevated his personality, his
Yeah,
character, and his fishing style, and his ability to catch big smallmouth. That's what really showcased him and springboarded him into what he is now. Taku Ito, if he isn't already, is going to be a mega superstar in the bass world.
I agree. Yeah, and he originally, right, didn't he have a TV show or something in Japan originally, and obviously won just a ridiculous amount of tournaments in Japan, and said, "Look, those Japanese anglers, and not taking anything from Taku, but dude, their work ethic is incredible, and what they have to go through to get to the U.S. and then compete on these waters like they've never been on, never caught a smallmouth before, and then be at the level that they are." It is absolutely incredible. And Taku, man, and he is so fun to watch, and his personality is just encompasses bass fishing and how happy and excited he gets. And oh man, it is just everyone. I think if you haven't watched Taku, when they first see him, you're like, I love this guy. Like this guy is absolutely ate up with this, and you can just see why he's so good.
His enthusiasm is contagious. He I had there was old women that were standing in the crowd.
Yeah,
They were standing in the crowd at the St. Lawrence final weigh-in. I was
yeah,
out in the crowd taking photos with my big lens, and this lady came up behind me and she said, "You can have it." She said, "Do you know?" I'm sorry, my son walked
you're
down
good,
here.
man. You're good.
Um, this old lady walked up to me, and I would say she was in her early to mid 80s.
Mhm.
Yes. She walked up to me and she said, "Do you know Taku?" And I told her, I said, "Yes, ma'am. I was in his boat today out on the lake." And she said, "Will you, when you go talk to him, will you please tell him that we love him?" And she was as sincere as she could possibly be. And I actually got choked up, and I said, "I will." And that was one of the first things I said to Taku when I jumped on stage to give him a
Yeah.
hug after he got his trophy. and and everyone feels the same way. The whole crowd, everyone thought Corey Johnston was going to win that event because that's his home lake. He
Hometown
and
state.
Chris grew up on the St. Lawrence River from the Ontario side. They know that lake like the back of their hand. And a lot of people thought, they were favorites to win it. I actually picked Taku to win either Champlain or the St. Lawrence River way back in the beginning of the season because how he finished last year. And he was one of my favorites going into either one of those events. I think he finished 31st on Champlain. He had a good tournament, but he had one bad day that kept him out of the top 10. But you could see his weights. He was on the rise each day through day 3 and day 4. Dude, he was scared to go out on Lake Ontario because he
Yeah.
had never had big water experience before. But he told me when we got to the mouth of the river and at the lake, he said he said Jake, last year I was very scared of Lake Ontario. This year, no scare. We go. And he gunned it and we went out there, and obviously the experience, I mean, it was just insane. He at one time he literally had what he thought was over 100 smallmouth under his boat that were over 5 pounds at the same time. And the reason he thought that, he could see it on his graph on his
Live
Mega
stream.
360.
Oh, it's on 360. Okay.
And it created a false bottom on his live. It created a false bottom, and he was supposed to be in 22 feet of water. He thought he was on the wrong waypoint because it looked like it was 13 feet of water. He dropped a wacky rig down and caught the first fish. It was over 5 pounds, and the fish scattered when he landed that fish. That's when he realized what was going on. And then the school came back and he just kept picking them apart. They were suspended in 13 feet of water, over 22 feet of water at the time. It was unbelievable, man.
Smallmouth Disneyland. That was,
Yeah, yeah.
that was crazy. And so, like, on that spot, I mean, was it a rock pile or something? And then those fish were just suspended, just had moved out off of it, and he just put down and was like, "Whoa, they're here, and they're here." I
There
mean,
were Yeah, it was a zebra mussel bed.
okay,
So he was concerned when he would hook up, they wanted to go straight down, and he was concerned about he was using 11-pound um, uh, braid, but
okay,
he was using 8-pound
well,
fluorocarbon leader, a 15-foot fluorocarbon leader. So he was scared that any movement anywhere close to those zebra mussels could snap his line immediately. So he would hook up and he would steer his boat out away from the zebra mussels off the brake line into deeper water. And so if you go back and look at the reel, he was hand feeding his reel, and a lot of people um, either criticized him for doing that or said, "Why would you do that when you have the drag that you do on those reels?" But
sure,
he felt like he needed to feed that out so he could. He was more in tune to what was going on. He knew how much line was going out on his spinning reels, and it helped him calculate how deep the fish was, where he was, and all those different things. So he was very, very technical in how he caught each fish. And I think one of the fish, the 6-pounder that he landed on the last day, took him 4 minutes and 59 seconds to land,
wow,
which is an eternity when you're in a bass tournament of that magnitude, right? And he
yeah,
fished from the moment he dropped his line on his first waypoint to the moment he picked up his trolling motor and we took off to head back. We had an hour and a half ride back to Waddington from where we were. He only fished for 2 hours and like 2 hours and 28 minutes before he took off. So he caught everything that he caught in a little bit over 2 hours.
wow.
26 pounds. And he owes me a boat. Taku, if you watch this, don't you forget you owe me your boat. We made a bet before we left. I said, "How much weight do you think you have?" He said, "Oh, maybe 22, maybe 23, but no more." And I looked at him. I said, "You have at least 26 pounds. You may have 27 or 28 pounds, Taku. These are monster fish." And he said, "No way. You want to bet?" And I said, "If it's less than 26 pounds, I win your boat." And he said, "Okay, if it's no, if it's less than 26 pounds, I win your camera equipment, and if it's over 26 pounds, you win my boat." And it was 26 pounds right on the money when
Even,
he weighed those fish.
yeah, wow. Looks like he can get a
Yeah,
new boat. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. I let him off the hook. We talked about it after the weigh-ins. I let him off the hook, but he those were they didn't even look real, Adam. I mean, it was
They're just
insane,
giants. No,
gigantic prehistoric smallmouth fish.
that's crazy, man. No, and I haven't spent any time in the north part of the country bass fishing. I've gone a lot of places, but have not been up north. And this year, I'm actually fishing the St. Lawrence River Open there in about a month as a co-angler, just because I've never been up there, never experienced it all, and I'm really excited to get up and see those absolute giants, man. It's just incredible. Those the all everything I've seen from coverage and that kind of a thing.
Well, I'll actually be there. We're going to cover the championship day on live on
That's right.
Bassmaster, actually on
On
Fox
Fox.
Sports One.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
That's
be there for that. Right? It's kind of in limbo. They're wanting me to go do a different project during the same time, but that's like September 11th, 12th, and 13th.
mhm.
Right now, I'm scheduled to be there, so we'll definitely have to hook up. And I hope that you draw an angler that
Yeah.
wants to go out on the big lake. And my guess is after what happened with Taku and all the other anglers like Paul Mueller and the Johnston brothers, Caleb Summerall, the guys that do well on that system always catch the big ones on Lake Ontario. There
Yeah.
are spots that you can catch 5 and 6 and even 7-pound smallmouth in the river system, but not 3 or 4 days in a row.
Yeah. Well, and what's nice too is the Open, just like how next year the St. Lawrence on the Elite Series is going out of Clayton, the Open's
hmm
also going out of Clayton. So you're gonna be at the lake. You know what I
You'll
mean?
be halfway. You'll be half almost to the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
way close. Way better boat ride than from Waddington.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
bet. I bet. Isn't there like a when you get isn't there some like areas where you can only do 30 miles an hour and stuff?
Yeah, there's a section called the Narrows
Okay.
between Waddington and Clayton, just as you come into Clayton, and it narrows down, and it is an absolute terror through there because there are huge yachts from both the Canadian and the American side. And these are huge, multi-million dollar yachts that cruise through there. And as they're going the speed limit, which I think is 35 to 40 miles an hour,
Yeah.
they're leaving a huge wake. And I mean, it just turns into it's notorious for sinking boats,
Oh, wow.
small watercraft. So you got to be careful. In fact, one of our anglers, I'm not going to name who it was or what,
Mhm.
you know, I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to, shine a bad light on the situation. But one of the pro anglers on the Elite Series speared a wave going a little bit too fast, and his Marshall ended up in the trolling motor, broke his arm, had to have surgery. So, and this is, I've ridden with this pro before, and he's an extremely good boat driver. He just miscalculated one little move, and boom, he was in the water. So you got to be careful up there. But I hope you go out on the lake.
Yeah.
That's
No,
a completely different experience, and it's better.
yeah, awesome, man. No, I'd love to. I can't wait. So I'm really excited for that. Man, with this stuff is so cool to me. You can experience that stuff so close with those pros. I mean, it seems like to me, a lot of these guys, including yourself, you talked about being good friends with Lee Livesey, Taku, right? Like you become the relationships between the camera guys and the Elite Series guys are incredible, right? Like you hear Seth Fighter every time he's on camera. EK, give me some. Like, he's always saying stuff like that. And you guys are always giving him knuckles and high fiving. And that's just why do you think that some of those relationships come about being the camera guy in those moments where those guys are in contention to win a tournament?
I mean, I think it's the laws of frequency. The more you're with someone, the better you get to know them, the more relaxed they become. I mean, they ask us questions. I mean, we get to ride with the best pros in the world. I mean, over 10 years, I've ridden with Kevin Van Dam and Mike Iaconelli and Casey Ashley and lots with Jason Christie and a lot of big time pros that have won a lot of events and know what they're doing on a world class level. So we understand what's going on too. And I think one of the analogies that I give people is what we do with the pro anglers is very similar to what a caddy is for a pro golfer.
Oh,
um, and they don't necessarily ask us which bait we think they need to use. Like,
sure.
Tiger might ask, you know, uh, his caddy what what club he thinks he should use for this shot or whatever. We do talk about it a lot, and we talk about weights. Well, what do you think I really have, or how big do you think that fish is? You think that's an upgrade, or those things? And as you converse about these details, there's more trust that's built. And the more trust that's built, the more relaxed they are, the more they are themselves on camera, which makes a better TV show. So, we're, over time, I mean, the relationship I've built with Brandon Polinick,
Hmm.
um, Chad Pipkins, Chris Zaldane, and I have done a lot together. Lee Livesey is my boy. Caleb Summerall, Bill Lowen. The list goes on. We're very close to. It's like a traveling family circus almost. It's very similar to NASCAR on the water, and we're just one big, happy family. We get to fish with those guys after the tournaments if we want to sometimes. I text with Brandon Polinick and Lee Livesey all the time. I talked to Lee just a couple hours ago. He's still up on the St. Lawrence practicing for next year.
Wow.
So yeah, they're great guys. Every one of them. I've never ever had a bad experience with any of them.
Hmm.
I can't say they're all equal boat drivers.
I bet.
Some
I
are
bet.
better than others, particularly the
Sure.
older guys are a bit, more experienced than the young guys coming up. But at the same time, you take Patrick Walters, who is a very young in his professional career. You would think you're on the boat with Kevin Van Dam sometimes with him. He knows what he's doing. He's very in tune to his electronics. He's very in tune to what's going on underwater, and he is extremely personable and professional with everything that he does. I love Patrick Walters too, and I hope he sees this because he needs to know that about himself.
That's awesome, man. That's
Hmm.
really cool. I think, like you said, a dream job, man. What you get to experience. With your hat there, Fat Bass. I noticed you do some stuff there with Fat Bass apparel, and that I believe I see on Taku's jersey sometimes too. What is that? And are they a Japanese apparel company? And that's I'm just an assumption off of Taku there. But what do they kind of stand for, and what is it?
Yeah, so Fat Bass was actually developed by a guy down in Georgia and
Okay.
near Savannah, Georgia, and he he actually played basketball at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville
Hmm.
years ago, and he was a film director and producer in Hollywood for some small budget films. And he got tired of the Hollywood scene, and being a bass fishing fan himself, decided to start an apparel company, which he coined Fat Bass, and he got a really cool logo design going with
Yeah.
his fat fish. And then last year, after the St. Clair event, he was so impressed with Taku Ito, he contacted him, and Taku he owns a company called Techstard, which is another a technical equipment company and apparel company, and
Okay.
Fat Bass started manufacturing some of the apparel for Techstard for Taku. So that's how that relationship came
Oh,
about.
wow.
And when Fat Bass approached me on my Instagram page with
Mhm.
some photos of Taku that I had that were unique and fit his style of marketing, visual marketing, we just started building this relationship. And what Fat Bass really is, if you want to look into the future, Fat Bass is going to be the Lacoste or the Ralph Lauren Izod
Oh,
of
wow.
the fishing world. Their true market value is going to come once they start releasing their polo shirts and their collared shirts.
I see.
Basically, it's going to be technical wear that you might see one day on the front of a GQ magazine. It's really high
Wow.
quality apparel for the bass world that has never really existed. It's not anything like Columbia or Under Armour or Aftco. They're not even in direct competition of each other outside of maybe some net gaiters and face masks and whatnot. But once their true line of apparel comes out, you'll see that Fat Bass is going to make a statement and a stand in the fishing fashion world.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. No, I've seen that logo and I thought the logo is really cool. And I've seen a couple of different shots of guys wearing stuff. No, that'll be really cool to see what comes from that. I love seeing new companies kind of start up and then you see their growth and where they really want to go with things. And that I think is really unique. It's not something that you see. I mean, everyone seems to start an apparel company nowadays that's similar. All of them have a shirt that's a fishing shirt, hooded shirt, that kind of a thing. So cool to see that, and excited there. Um,
Can I
let's
say
kinda
one more thing about
yeah,
Fat Bass real quick?
do it.
So Fat Bass, it and this relates to being an outdoor cameraman or a camera boat, or I'm sorry, a camera operator for Bassmaster, or a private on the private side for these pros or whatever it is.
Mhm.
The reason I latched on to Fat Bass what more than their business model was the relationship. There was an immediate connection with the owner and developer and founder of Fat Bass,
Mhm.
that he and I hit it off really well. Plus, he was already in business with Taku, and so the chemistry was there. And I want to tell all these young um, up and coming content creators in the fishing world or in the hunting world that more important than anything else, everybody, you got to go stand in line to work for Yeti. You got to go stand in line to work for, Humminbird or Strike King or these big brands. There are lots of small brands out there that have huge potential, but the one most important thing as you become a professional in this industry is the chemistry and the relationship you have with that company. Because if you hook up with a company that's bigger than the world itself, then if you don't have chemistry, it's useless because that relationship won't last very long, because either you won't like how they run their operations, or they won't like how you run your operations, because there's no chemistry. So, friends first in the professional world for sure.
Yeah. Uh, dude, that I think is incredible advice, and that's with everything. I think that so many people are like, "Oh, well, this major brand, I want to represent this brand and that." But to me, where the magic is and where you really see the growth between two people and representing a brand or working for a brand is in those relationships. The personal relationships are so important in everything that people do, and I think it's overlooked a lot. And I agree, man. You don't have to be working for the top of the line company. Um, you wanna have a really strong relationship and build. So that's great advice, and that's really cool with
Yeah,
that.
if you want to slow your career progress down, go jump in line to get in with a really big company, because they don't have time for you. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's extremely difficult to work your way up in a big brand unless you're a super mega talent. And if you latch on to a small startup brand that's got a lot of potential, and if you grow with them, that's how you boost your career.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's awesome advice. Awesome, man. And really kind of, you've got your Bassmaster Elite Series season, and then you have everything else that you do that you fit in between everything. I mean, whether it be private camera work with your media company or Praire Rock Outfitters, I guess let's kind of go into a little bit of what your off season looks like off of the Elite Series and everything else that you do throughout, I guess, the next 5 months here or 4 months, whatever we have until it all starts over again.
Yeah. So the Town Pump, as you mentioned, is a bar I own in Fort Collins, in which you and I have to meet up for a beer there very soon.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, we
Anytime.
for sure.
I'll buy
You and
you
I,
a
I don't
beer.
know where you live in Windsor, but I live in Timnath, and we're like 5 miles apart
That's
or
hilarious.
less.
We're
Yeah,
doing this remote, but you're like up the road from me. I used to live,
exactly.
but I bought a house in Windsor, so that's awesome,
Gotcha.
man.
And so, the Town Pump is there, and that was a really rough ride through COVID because of all the restrictions and lockdowns and all that. But we're up and running, and really doing well again. Hopefully that doesn't occur again.
Yeah.
And then Prairie Rock Outfitters is on the North Platte River in western Nebraska. It's basically 2.5 hours straight north of here.
Hmm.
Um, and it's actually 41 miles straight north of the Cabela's headquarters in Sydney, Nebraska.
Hmm.
And, we do elk hunts, duck hunts, goose hunts, turkey hunts, mule deer hunts, and whitetail hunts. In
Hmm.
fact, relating it to this program, we're having a Bassmaster Elite duck hunt this year.
How
So we're going to
cool.
have like 10 guys in. Seth Fighter will be there, Bill Lowen, Stetson Blaylock, Lee Livesey, Brandon Polinick, perhaps Patrick Walters, maybe Matt Robertson.
Wow.
Yeah, we're gonna have a crew in January, and we're gonna film it for an RNT episode. The RNT crew will be there. Lee Chose from Boss Shot Shells will be there,
Mhm.
and we're just gonna have a big old Bassmaster Elite party. I'm pretty sure that Steve Bowman, who is the director of all the creative content on the Bassmaster side, like Bassmaster Magazine, Bass Times, and all that. He'll be there. James Overstreet, the legendary photographer from Bassmaster, will be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't wait. January 11th, 12th, and 13th is when that's going to go down. So I'm really looking forward to that. But that's what we do at Prairie Rock. It's mainly a deer hunting and waterfowl hunting outfit and service. We've got 35 miles of river bottom and 350,000 acres, so it's kind of like hunting on a national park. But yeah, that's what we do at Prairie Rock.
That's awesome, man. That is really, really cool. An Elite Series duck shoot, man. I in college, I interned as a seed salesman in Western Nebraska. And so spent a lot of time in Western and Central Nebraska and brought my boat out there. So I did a lot of bass fishing on McConaughey. And then also, I mean, gosh, man, my roommate and I in college, every weekend we would be heading to Western Nebraska, a little farther south than there, kind of down by Imperial, not on the river itself, but gosh, man, the amount of ducks that we'd have in little sloughs and that kind of a thing, especially when things got cold, we would absolutely pound the ducks and the goose hunting there.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's a different world, man. And then now one of our good friends from that was in that area as well moved to Bridgeport, it's a little further north than you. And man, on the river there on North Platte, that's really cool. Or I guess
I'm
Bridgeport might be south. Might be
I'm
south.
actually Broadwater is where we're headquartered in
Okay.
Nebraska, and we're 13 miles east of Bridgeport. And then our main lodge is in Lisco, which is another 15 miles from east of Broadwater. So I go to Bridgeport to the Steel Grill all the time to get a ribeye and a beer
Yeah, dude.
in Bridgeport.
I've
Yeah.
been there a couple of times. That's
We actually
exactly
have leased land all the way from basically from Lisco or actually Oshkosh.
yep.
Our easternmost property goes all the way to Oshkosh, Highway 27 almost, and then our swath of property goes all the way past Baird, which is another 15
Wow.
miles west of Bridgeport. So we almost stretch out to Scottsbluff along
Wow.
that river. Yeah, it's amazing. You have to come up and do a hunt with us sometime.
That'd be awesome, man. That'd
I'll
be
get you
awesome.
up there.
Yeah, let's do it. That's incredible, man. You've built a life that I think a lot of young people in the industry could dream of. And man, I guess we'll kind of get things wrapped up here, but you've already displayed a ton of advice. But as far as if you could give one piece of advice to someone who's looking to um, have a job that they love, creating a business in the outdoor industry, anything related to that, and loving what they're doing every day, what would it be?
Be honest, work hard, be honest, build relationships. You'll never get anywhere with an ego. No one wants you to work for them when you have an ego. Check your ego at the door, be humble, know who you are, work hard, know where you are in your career, and work your way up. Have patience because overnight. I've been doing this for 25 years almost, and it took I would say it probably took a good 15 to 16 years to finally get to a point in my career where I felt like I was a professional. I get phone calls and I don't have to make as many calls as I used to. But that came with time and building relationships with lots of different brands in the industry to gain credibility. And once you do that, when you hook up with a good brand that has some leverage in the industry, they start to tell other people about you because they want to share. It's a family, and it's smaller than the world is smaller than you really think it is when you get to that level. So don't do anything to screw that up. Work hard and be patient and never ever give up.
Awesome, man. That's incredible. As a closing, I like to ask all the guests that comes on the show, what is your personal best largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass? If you caught all three of those, and where were you when you caught them?
My personal best largemouth is 8.9 pounds, and I caught that in on Kentucky Lake, which is where I grew up in West Tennessee.
Wow.
Mhm. And then my personal best smallmouth, I've caught three that weighed 4.5 pounds. One was in a very small creek called Trace Creek that feeds into Kentucky Lake. One was up on the St. Lawrence River, and ironically enough, one was in a body of water very close to you and I right now. And
Okay.
I caught that on a spook about 3 weeks ago
I bet
on
I know
top water.
what lake it is. I bet I know exactly
Yeah,
what.
you know where it is. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, it's right between us. That's awesome.
yeah.
That's very cool.
And I've actually never caught a spotted bass to my recollection.
Yeah.
But the biggest one I've ever filmed was about 4.5 pounds. Brock Mosley caught that at Pickwick. I'm sorry, at Neely Henry this year, and I was able to film that, and that was a cool. One of my buddies that just left the high school series last year that fishes for Auburn now, Tucker Smith. He
Yeah.
caught a 6 pounder at Lake Hartwell, which is the lake record now. He caught that this year in
Giant.
a college event.
That's a giant, dude. Yeah.
Unbelievable
That guy's lighting
spot.
the world on fire. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, Jake, man, I really appreciate all the insight you've had and taking the time out, man, to come on to the show. How can folks follow along with everything that you have going and any plugs you'd like to have now? Go for it.
Yeah, you can always find me on Instagram. I'm very a frequent participant there at Jake underscore Latendresse or outdoor underscore cameraman. I have
Yeah.
two, or I actually have like 4 or 5 pages there, but those are my two main feeds. You can find me on Facebook under the same name. You can go to lmcollective.com, latendressemediacollective.com to see my media website, or you can go to prairieRockOutfitters.com to see our website there, and we're all over social media as well. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. I got a feeling we're going to be closer friends than we have been in the past, which was really just meeting in the past few days. But
Yeah.
I like your presentation, and I see all that hardware in the background there, and I'm looking forward to getting out on a lake with you and catching some fish and drinking a beer at the town pump.
Sounds good, man. We'll absolutely do that soon. Jake, thanks for coming on, man. And hey, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right, see you.